Hi everyone, this is Manny from Artmillos. Today we will discuss transferring your 3D model from Nomad Sculpt to Procreate. Nomad Sculpt and Procreate are completely different when it comes to painting 3D model. Nomad Sculpt supports vertex painting while Procreate supports UV painting. In other words, in Nomad Sculpt you can paint your 3D model straight on your sculpt, but the resolution of painting will depend on the density of your sculpt. So higher your sculpt resolution, more detailed paintings you can do on Nomad Sculpt. So vertex painting is much more limited. Your mesh resolution is the upper boundary to the texture details you want on your sculpt when you're doing vertex painting. This is the reason in Nomad Sculpt, if you want high detailed texture, you end up with a very heavy file size. So Procreate deals this problem with UV texturing. UV texture enables you to map a 2D image to your 3D mesh. This means you can have a big complex image with a whole lot of more details on a low poly or a low resolution mesh. So while in Nomad Sculpt you end up with a high resolution mesh, in Procreate you can have a same details with the low poly mesh. And this is the reason why the game models or the models used for animation, they have a UV texture. In order to use UV texture, you will need to UV map your 3D model, which is more like unfolding your 3D model. The better analogy is origami model. So you just unfold that paper back to where you started, like a flat piece of paper. And that basically is your UV map. So this whole discussion brings us to one conclusion, that the model you have created in Nomad, you will need to UV map it. The second challenge which we will need to overcome is somewhat related to the first one. Now the reason we have UV texturing in Procreate is because it is not optimized to take a high resolution 3D sculpt, which means your high resolution 3D sculpt from Nomad will need to be made to a low resolution mesh. Only then we can bring it to Procreate. So we will need to do two things. One, we need to reduce the size of our sculpt, and two, we need to UV map our 3D model. The third problem I'm seeing here, which we will need to tackle, is that our 3D model has so many parts, and if you try and bring this to Procreate, you'll have a number of layers. So we don't want that. What we will do is we will group different parts that share same materials. So for instance, you see some parts here has a chrome material, so we will put them together as one group. So what we'll do is we'll select them all, and then we will use simple merge. I've already done it here. So you see here there are just few parts now that share same materials, so we have just few groups left. You probably also noticed that this model looks very low resolution. It has lost some information, some details from the previous one, and that's because I have decimated it. So decimation is a process that reduces the file size of your sculpt. So what it does is, first it creates your sculpt in triangles, and the places which has more information in your 3D sculpt, it packs more triangles there so that it retains the shape, whereas the places which are more like a flat, it has a bigger triangles, so that way it is able to reduce the file size. So this is what we will need to do. We will select each part and decimate it. So overall we will be able to reduce the file size of our sculpt. And this is how you decimate it. Select the part you want to decimate. So in this case, let's start with the body. You see here the body is 247K. Let's see how much we can bring it down while we try and retain the shape to some extent. So select the part, go to this icon, and you will see that decimation. Let's start with like 50%, or you know what, let's start with 45%. We don't have to worry about preserve painting because we are going to paint it in Procreate. Then we have something called uniform faces. So again, as I explained, it's going to decimate it. It's going to make different size triangles. The smaller the triangles, more information, bigger the triangles, less information. So this particular parameter controls how much uniform you want to keep the triangle. So we'll not worry about this, we'll keep it as it is. Just remember, the higher the value, the bigger the file size is going to become. So I'm going to strip the color off the sculpt and bring it to Metcap, and then the wireframe to show you how the mesh looks like right now and how we'll end up with. So this is our mesh at the moment. It's nice and uniform. It's quads, so basically it has 4 vertices, and the file size is 247K. So I'll go here and I'll decimate it. After decimation, our file size has got down to 185K, and you see our sculpt is full of triangles. Alright, so let's decimate a couple of more times, and now we end up with 103K. We'll do it one more time. Let's see what happened to our sculpt. It is still good enough. It is still retaining a lot of information here, and the file size have gone to 77.8K. We can do one more time, one more time, one more time. So keep doing it until your information, the sculpt, is retained. So from 247K we have come to 32.7K. So let's do a couple of more times, and now we've come to 18.3K, 10.2K. This is crazy. Okay, so as I said, we have to get rid of the K. So now it is 5K is good enough. So you will need to do this step for all your parts. Okay, and once you do it, you'll have a low resolution sculpt, and it'll be ready to UV split. And once you do this, we have a good low resolution sculpt, and then Nomad will be able to UV map it. So I'll show you something here. So if you go here, just under decimation, you have UV auto unwrap. So basically Nomad Sculpt auto unwraps it, while the other 3D softwares, the industrial version like Maya or Blender, you can actually control how you want to UV wrap your model. And you see, like under the UV auto unwrap, you have a small message here. It can be very slow if the target is under 100K vertices, and this is the reason you will need to bring the file size down so that Nomad can unwrap it quickly. So you see here, I've done this for all the parts. The file size of my sculpt has reduced to 353K. It was over 10 mil, and now it is 353K. So this is good enough to bring it in Procreate, but obviously we'll need to UV unwrap it before we bring it to Procreate. As you see here, the model we have is low resolution. It has lost a lot of information. In the gaming industry, we do it a little bit different way. We have something called baking normal maps. With normal map texturing, you'll be able to bring all the details of your sculpt in your low resolution model, and you do that basically by faking the lightnings of bumps and dents and all those of your original sculpt to your low polygon model. So the model you bring in Procreate would not have normal maps, so it'll look low resolution, but this is what we have at the moment. Okay, so the final step, UV mapping this. So we select the model, we go back here, just under the decimation, you have UV auto unwrap. So you hit unwrap, confirm yes. And if your model is light, and if you're able to successfully reduce the size of your 3D model or 3D part you're working on, Nomad will quickly unwrap your model. You'll see something like this. So basically it has broken down your 3D model in pieces and has laid out on a 2D image. You would notice that suddenly your model has changed to this checkerboard texturing, and that's because you have under shading, it has switched over to PBR UV. UV mud shading basically tells you if the UV map has been done for the different parts. You see here in this, it's been done for all the parts except islands. So now under PBR UV shading, you see that all our parts has this weird checkered shading, which tells us that they have been UV mapped. And now our model is ready to be exported to Procreate. So export option is pretty straightforward. You go here and under export, make sure it is OBJ, because Procreate supports OBJ, and we don't care about export vertex colors, so you can untick that. I want you to notice here that just before we send it to Procreate, you have a here 3D asset, and it shows the size of your file, 45.7 MB. And in the beginning, the original file size of our sculpt was little over 1 GB, and this was possible because of decimation. So now we hit export, we look for Procreate, and we have it in Procreate. So in Procreate you will see that grouping which we did in Nomad, we have it here as same groups, and it is named a little bit funny: Material 0 Scooter, Material 0 Bug, Character Body. Alright, so let's see how we can texture the character's body. Under character body, if you click here, you'll have a base layer, and then if you click this cube icon, you have color, roughness, and metallic. In Procreate you have only 2 channels. You have roughness and metallic. Basically it controls the texture of the material, so you can bring the rough up and down by using the black and white gradient. Let's do this. So let's go to color layer, select the color channel, and then you pick your colors. So let's color this bug maybe green. So you pick a color and you drag it to B. So there we have a green color on his body. And then you have this roughness. So the moment it's white, which means it's 100% rough. So in order to bring it down, you will go to your color picker, and remember it only detects the grayscale, like black and white. So even if you select color, it doesn't matter, it'll still pick the gray part of the color. So if you want to bring say 50% roughness down, maybe choose color between pure white and pure black. So maybe it's something like this, and then if you drag and bring it on your sculpt, you'd see it is less rough now. And then you have metallic channels. This is where you will see the huge difference. So the moment it's black, which means it is not metallic at all. So we go here, let's choose like something like gray, drag it on here. So you see it's a little bit more metallic now, it's more shinier. If you go completely white, now it's completely metallic. I struggle with the camera thing in Procreate a little bit, just overdoes sometime. And obviously you can further modify the color by adding extra layer. So we have additional layer here. Say you want to add a little bit more yellowish to this, choose your brush, and you can paint. You see, although our model is very low resolution, texturing, and that's because we are doing UV painting. To show you something which I've done in Procreate. It's not the best texturing. I guess it misses the metallicness here, so do that. I'm using white, probably too metallic, but right. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching.